hope we're on the right setting. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Coach Lorri Lown with Team Wilpers, and with me today, my favorite guest of all time is Coach Brian Hammond, also with Team Wilpers. And we were just catching up on our summer things and kids and travel and stuff. And Brian, what's happening?
What's happening is I have one kid in camp for 4 weeks, which is nice. My other kid works all the time, so I never see them anyway. And my wife is traveling right now too. So I feel like I'm home alone.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think a little bit of both,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a good thing because I don't have other people to really worry about all the time because I'm a warrior. I cook and all that stuff. But it's a bad thing because you know what? I end up staying up late.
Yes.
I binge watch TV of shows that I don't even like or want to watch, but I'm like, yeah, one more episode.
Yeah.
And I get sucked into it. When my wife is here, I like a bedtime and I read and
Right.
I have a good nighttime routine and I sleep better, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely, and there's definitely dishes in the sink,
Which
which
might be
gives me
better.
a ton of anxiety as well because I always end up doing the dishes too. And then I'm like, I feel overwhelmed. So it's a good thing and a bad thing, I think, in certain
You don't
certain
do the
ways.
dishes when she's home?
I do the dishes when she's home. That's
Oh,
what's crazy. And I do the dishes when she's not home.
got it.
But yeah, I still let them pile up. And
Yeah,
when they pile up, it gives me anxiety
I
and
know. I can't go to bed
drives
with,
me nuts.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's when I know when I'm in a weird mood because I'm like, ah, screw the dishes. And then I'll do them in the morning before I allow myself to have a cup of coffee.
Mhm.
But I live in a house without a dishwasher for the first time in like my life since I was a kid. And
See, I have a dishwasher and I don't really need one because I'm like, just wash the dish when you're done.
yeah, I know. But I cook everything. So I have all my food prep stuff. So it's become, anyways, I've been making a lot of soup. I've been trying to do, more protein and was having a little bit of GI stuff. And so I got some bone broth. And I was like, oh, but bone broth by itself is boring. So
Hmm.
I have been sauteing some mushrooms and some green onions and putting them in the bone broth and doing a little bit of like Japanese, the little noodles or soba or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because the rice is,
Fantastic.
I know. But you know me and OCD, I'll make the same thing every day for the rest of my life. And I'm like, and I've been trying not to do that. That's been one of my challenges this summer. I am trying to break cycles that I've built up in my life. And that's one of the things I'm trying to have different meals at different times of the day. Like I'll have a breakfast at dinner time or just as a way to challenge myself. And it's been interesting. It's been good. It's been good. Lots of growth. This has been the
So
summer.
I gave my kids a challenge. This is years ago, a couple years ago, where I was like, I'll give you $1 for every different fruit or vegetable
Oh
that
yeah.
you eat in a given week,
Yeah.
with the goal of getting up to 30, right? So the idea is like you can make $30 a week and you have to have a different apple, right? So if you normally have
Yeah.
Macintosh, have a Granny Smith, right? That's two. So you just got $2, two different apples, right? So it's all that to get the variety so you don't get stuck in that same kind of thing all the time.
Speaking of apples, I've been making applesauce. I've never made applesauce.
Me
Uh,
neither.
and I don't have a core or a peeler or any one of those, so I'm doing it all by hand. But I wanted to make applesauce again because I was having some GI issues. And so I was doing what's called the brat diet, right? Which is banana, rice, apples, and toast. All things I don't eat, all beige foods, right? But they're supposed to settle your stomach and that and a bunch of probiotics, and I'm healed. But anyways, so I was like, apples and fiber and all that. And so I was like, I'll make applesauce. So what I learned, I didn't want to put sugar in it. I learned that if you use two different types of apples, a tangy apple and a sweet apple, then it tastes really good. So one day I made it with cinnamon. One day I made it with cardamom. Cardamom is one of those underrated spices. I'm
Yeah,
convinced.
but I think it's like one of the most expensive spices in the world.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it's like ridiculously
Oh yeah, champagne
expensive.
taste, right? For a while, my food that I ate every morning for a long time was quinoa that I would make like oatmeal in the rice cooker, and I would
Hmm.
put oils in it, and I would do the same thing. So that's why I had some cardamom, and I was like, oh, this is so good. And then one day I used both. That was like really edgy. So that's
And
what
super expensive.
shut up. It's
Yeah, my wife used to use it for like a porridge type thing. And I
yeah,
remember I bought it the one day and I was like, man, this is really expensive. And then I looked it up. I was like, I don't even know what this is, right? And yeah, it turns out it's like the one of the most expensive spices in the world. I forget why, but like super expensive. Yeah.
cool.
So use cinnamon. It's much cheaper.
I know. I was worried either of them were going to be an issue, but um I try not to use processed foods, but you look at all the things that we have that are processed, and even like my electrolyte tablets that I put in my water to drink has, sorbitol or xylitol or one of those things. And so it was like, okay, get rid of all the processed stuff, like no other ingredients. So it was a good exercise. And then I wanted like real food again. So yeah. Riding. Are you riding your bike?
I am. Um, Not as much as usual. Like, or actually, I should say, I find every year when I go back and I look, the
Uh-huh.
month of June, my riding volume goes down. And I don't know if it's just because kids in school or like life events or summer kind of starts like I get busier, something like that. But like I've
You
noticed like
need
over the
that
last like
halfway
4 weeks.
your break. You
Yeah,
started base training in December and
yeah, it would be good if I mentally took it as a break,
yeah.
right? But I don't. What happens is my volume goes down and then I'm upset because my volume goes down.
And we
As
know
a
volume is not fitness.
Correct. And what I should do, because then I stress like everybody else, of like I missed my rides. I only got 3 rides in this week instead of 5. And right, then I start feeling bad about missing these things. And I feel bad about my fitness, even though I'm still riding really well. It's instead of going back and looking, be like, hey, this is a trend. Like life happens. Like I had to move a house again. Right. Like
Yeah.
things happen where it's like, you know what, Brian, be smart and you should plan, like Lori just said, like this is your mid-season break. Like take 2 weeks where you know your volume's going to go down, like and plan for that and change
Take a
it. And
vacation, not unemployment, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
good
Reframe
analogy,
it.
right?
Yeah, it really is. It's about reframing it, and how it would have a different positive versus negative impact on my mental psyche. But yeah, no, I'm riding. I'm getting out. I'm actually doing a 24-hour mountain bike race next weekend as a team. So a 4-person team, like
Yeah.
complete fun. We're not going to like win or
Oh,
anything like that.
that attitude.
Although, although halfway through we'll probably want to win.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, like good just camping trip with some friends,
Oh, yeah.
and we're gonna ride some bikes all night long.
You're
So
gonna
it's
ride
gonna
the
be a
night bike.
blast. Oh, we'll alternate. We'll alternate every lap. So,
My
you'll
first
ride for
24
45 and then break. So
My first 20, I'd done a bunch of 8-hour mountain bike races, and my first 24-hour race, it was the old 24 hours of adrenaline series at
yeah,
Laguna
I did those.
Ciateras. And I was not much of a mountain biker, but I thought I was a badass. And I got scared of riding at night. We did one little night ride, and I had commuted at night, but riding a mountain bike's different. And you see every bit of dust and your depth perception,
Yeah.
even with a bar light and a helmet light. And it started out going through the campground in this really technical section, and which really wasn't, but in my brain it was. And I turned around and I went to the tent of the next person who was supposed to go, and I was like, I can't do it. And man, I did not make friends. So the next year I decided to do a 2-person team because that was a 5-person team, right? And I was like, I know that this is a challenge for me, and I had practiced a little bit. But I was like, I have to ride into the dark. I have to have the lap where it gets dark on me. I can't go. It's
Mhm.
kind of like going out in the rain. I can't go out and ride in the rain if it's raining when I start. But if it rains while I'm out there, I'm okay with it.
Fun.
It was the same.
Yeah, I love night riding. I've done a lot of 24-hour solo events,
Yeah,
and 24-hour adrenaline series was awesome.
I know.
Um, Riding at night is fun, but yeah, your depth perception is way off.
Mhm.
And like every rock moves, right? Because the shadow moves as you come to it and stuff. It's really crazy. But one of my favorite things to do in a 24-hour race, so if anyone ever does a 24-hour race, is halfway through the lap, stop, get off the trail and turn your light off and just
Yeah,
look backwards.
yeah.
Because then you see all the lights
Like
like
little fire
coming.
pits.
yeah, like coming through the trail. It's so cool. It's so like one of my favorite things to do. I love 24-hour events.
Yeah.
4-person team, definitely the way to go because
I
you can
think two
ride hard.
is harder than solo. Two
Two
person,
person, well, it's not, but it's
well, it's
it's
different because
different. Yeah, for
you
sure.
don't,
Because you're riding hard. Yes.
you are, and you don't really get much of a break. Like we did
Yeah.
double laps and then we were trying to do triple laps at night and that didn't work really well. Um, so you don't have time to sleep because you just
Correct.
finish. And the other lesson I learned, this is a good one for those of you who are sensitive to caffeine. You can't use caffeinated products all day long and expect to try to sleep on your hour-and-a-half lap at night because
Yeah.
oh, the caffeine. I always used caffeinated goo and I couldn't. So, but I've kind of
Yeah.
sworn off the events where I don't get sleep because I don't do well with them anymore. So,
I
yeah.
love them. I love them. I
But I
won't
am doing
sleep.
something different.
But
So I took a little break, 2 months off the bike, kind of intentionally. I wasn't originally planning to do that, but I realized I needed to do that. And so I was lifting weights and walking a lot. And then I started rowing. Oh man, the Peloton rowing content. It's like awesome. And they have these 10-minute technique classes where you work on a different part of the rowing stroke, which is really cool because most people row wrong. It's
mhm.
really the legs and people don't push off right. They don't catch right. They don't recover right. And I finally am getting it. And I've been doing these 10-minute classes and they break it down. And like one class, you're working on the catch and all you do is use your arms. And everyone in the gym looks at me like I'm crazy because I'm not using my legs. Or there was one where you do, what do they call it, the recovery, where you're going back forward again and you stop there. And I'm like, Matt, you're making me embarrassed in the gym. And it was, but it broke it down. And it's like, why don't we have anything quite like that? And I know if you have a Peloton row, it'll also give you that feedback. Like, are you doing things correctly and the timing? And the other thing that I changed, it's so fun to learn something new, was I was rowing way too fast. Like
Mhm.
my stroke would be 30 to 35 per minute. And they're like, oh yeah, warm up at 18 to 22. I'm like, I can't even do that. And then getting the better technique, I could. And I was doing the foot rocking thing. And so one class, I took my feet out of the straps.
Out of the straps.
And
Yeah.
that was the secret sauce. I was like, keep your foot in contact with that pad. And Alex and I are similar though, because I think the long bodies and the really long legs, he does go up a little tiny bit in the heel, but he pushes off at the heel. And he actually addressed that in a class where most of the other instructors don't. And I think they're all much shorter than him. And that's my tall girl problem. So I do get a little tiny bit of air in my heel, but anyways, that's been fascinating. And then a week,
Yeah. And there's a reason not to
right,
allow that, right? Is because it's engaging then the hip flexors and you're
right.
engaging, right? And same thing is like, well, why do we still tell people to pull up on the pedal stroke?
I know.
Just because you're strapped in or you're clipped in doesn't mean you should,
Right.
right? Like it's you should be able to ride your bike in flat pedals without
And,
anything
and
on,
still
right?
pull
Like,
off the pedals, right? You can
right.
deload if we want to.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's been really fun. And I have to say, my vanity of I've been doing all this strength work and my back is ripped right now. And so when I'm rowing, even though it's not technically an upper body sport, I can peek into the mirror and I'm like, whoa, look at that. Um, so yeah, so it's been a really good mental break for me. And then a week ago, I registered to hike rim to rim on the Grand Canyon. And of course, we know the Grand Canyon is burning. So that is now turned into a slight pivot where we're doing the South Rim, which is not burning, to the river and then out to Ribbon Falls and back, and then back up the South Rim on a different route. And that's been fun. My training, I immediately took the training plan and put it in Training Peaks. So I have walk days and weighted vest upstairs days, and I have hike days, and I have strength days. And I'm like, okay, now we're back in business. Now I have a goal, and it's totally
And a
different.
program to follow is always nice.
And it scares me just a little bit. And because this is all new, I mean, I have to get poles and I have to get a pack and cute shoes and all that stuff. Yeah.
All the exciting stuff, more
But
gear,
you
right?
know, I will say it's really fun to learn things. For me, I get stagnant doing the same thing all the time. And I think that's why I started running too, was I wasn't running away from anything, well, kind of, but I wanted to learn something new. And you always improve when you learn something new. And I think that's a really important aspect for me. And I turned 60 next week, and I started this little list in my head of things that I can do at 60 that I couldn't do at 50. I can do
Oh, that's awesome.
6 pull-ups. Six. There's
It's more
other
than me.
things. I can cook better at 60 than I did at 50. Um, yeah, I was like, I've never been able to do a pull-up. So I can do burpees. I thought I couldn't do burpees because of my janky hips. And I'm like, okay, good. You're not done. 60's not done. So for those of you out there who are already 60 or 70 and you're like, yeah, what are you thinking about? You're not done.
There's no, yeah, it's not done. You're not done until you're done. Like there are too many people doing Ironmans at 70 and 80
Right.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that for me to ever think like there's a time limit on anything.
Yeah. But back to learning something new. That's a good segue into what we were going to talk about today, which is power profile. So in our summer sprint challenge, which I'm now calling our summer space challenge because it's all spicy classes, we started with the power profile test. And what are we testing? So not in this order, but we're testing our 1 minute power, our 5 minute power, and our 5 second power. Actually, that is the order of the test. And then we have these great recoveries in between. Maybe not quite as long as we would do. And sometimes in the outdoor bike world, we would do these on different days as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But why do we do this? This was based, so if we think of a power profile, it tells us where our strengths are in different areas. And it also, and I don't love this, can be a way for us to compare ourselves to other people. Um, I know, many,
Comparison is
the thief of joy.
no, it's the provider of joy.
I know.
I'm better than you.
I
Yes.
it's
No,
I'm like,
it's
how often do they update these tables? That's what I want to know because anyways,
well, it's also who you're comparing it to, right? Like the data that they got
I
for
know.
this, if you look into like the power files, was like the power books, Cogdens, and all that is the only people that had power meters at that point in time were
Elite athlete.
world-class athletes. And then even the recreational athlete was your local Cat 1 racer who wasn't being paid to race, but still had a $2,000 power meter on his bike. So then I look at my numbers and I'm like, recreational. I'm
Right.
like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm training 15 hours a week to be recreational?
I know.
And you're
And
like,
I
no,
keep
it's
up and I'm
not.
in the cat 5 or the cat 4. And I'm like, but in the reality, I actually race at a higher level than that. But
Correct. Right.
Um, so I don't love for those of you who are like, what is she talking about? There is a power profile chart that says basically how you measure up based on gender and age and your power output at those three outputs, plus your 20-minute power, plus your 60-minute power. And which typically is an estimate, but it's not always an estimate. But yeah, and how you stack up. Are you a recreational cyclist? Are you a competitive cyclist? And in which category, all the way up to Olympians? And yeah, there are very few people up in there, the Olympians.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then what you can look at from that, whether or not I compare myself, is I can look at, where is my strength and where is my weakness? What should I train? Or what events might I be good at based on the demand of the event? Or I'm doing this event and it is in my weakest part of the sport. So maybe what I need to do is train that better. And so that's kind of our power profile. And so we look at, so 5 second power, neuromuscular power, right? So boom. And in the power profile class, it's actually those I think it's 6 or 5, 15-second efforts because you got to take the hardest part of it and you got to start and you got to end. And so you
Correct.
need a little runway there. And then our 1 minute power, which would be like zone 6, like VO2 max. And
Anaerobic. So anaerobic zone.
yeah, well,
1 minute is
5 minute is also
anaerobic.
anaerobic. Yeah.
Well, 5 minute would fall into like the way I kind of always looked at it
Aerobic,
is like
yes.
you look at your 5 second as being like your neurologic or CPT creatine phosphate system. Your 1 minute, which is what I really like, which is anaerobic because oxygen doesn't really play a role in
Right.
1 minute. Your 5 minute would be your VO2 max, which is a maximum anaerobic system and aerobic system. And then your 20 minute is much more aerobic system.
So
But
lactate threat. which is hard to test.
Yes,
People are like, well, what's the difference between lactate threshold and FTP and functional threshold power? Lactate threshold is about clearing blood lactate, so waste
correct.
products. And you have to go to a lab for that. And then we can look at ventilatory thresholds and all these other things. But
Yeah, FTP is a good estimation of your
yeah.
threshold, right? It's
Yeah.
not your actual threshold, but it's a good estimation of.
So when we train these powers, Brian, when we do the short duration training and we do intervals and we do sweet spot training or threshold intervals, how does that affect our FTP when we train the harder things? Does it?
Yeah,
Or is that
yeah, for sure. Yes, in the long run it does. In the short term, it probably negatively affects it.
yeah.
Um, that's the hard part, right? Like people are like, oh, my FTP went down. I'm like, yeah, possibly a good thing. So the
But
way I've always kind of explained this
FTP does
is
not equal fitness.
correct. The way I've always explained this is like get to like what FTP is. FTP is the ability to use your anaerobic system and your aerobic system. How do those two systems work together, right?
Right.
Now, to make your FTP better, I think of like a board, right? So the middle is my FTP. On one side I have anaerobic, one side I have aerobic. So if I want this board to go up, I'm
Right.
not going to push it up from both sides, right? I'm not going to just lift it like this. I have to work on my short power, my anaerobic, and then set that. And then I'm going to work on my aerobic, and then my anaerobic, and then my aerobic, and then my anaerobic,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of go up, but as you lift one end, the middle might go down a little bit,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm not doing the work necessary to support that other end.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to like, you really like anaerobic is super important. Like
Mhm.
this short, hard power is super, super important.
So let's talk about recovery for efforts like this. So do I go to full recovery for short, hard
Yeah.
efforts? Or do I,
Yes.
and what is recover?
Yes.
Right? Because
So
then
if we're,
you're like, oh, I'm recovering in zone 3. And I know instructors call that sometimes, but
yeah, no, it's again, it comes down to energy system, right?
right.
So if I'm doing sprints, let's say, and
Mhm.
this is not to confuse Tabata with this because Tabata is not sprinting, right? It's a sprint type effort, but it's not sprinting.
Mhm.
So when I'm looking at doing a short, hard effort, a sprint effort, 30 seconds and under, we'll say, probably even 20 seconds. What you're really using is your CPT system, your creatine phosphate system. This is the same system you'd be using when you're lifting weights. All right. Now, sprinting is not lifting weights. Let's not confuse those, but we are using the same energy system.
Right.
That energy system takes time to recover, which is why after you do a heavy weight lifting set, you wait for a minute and a half or two to let the
Oh, I
creatine
remember.
phosphate system regenerate so you can then reuse that system again. If it doesn't regenerate, you're going to go directly into your anaerobic system,
Mhm.
right? Which is what we're not trying to work. We're trying to work the CPT system. So you need to give yourself, like if I do a hard sprint effort, I might then ride easy in zone 1
Mhm.
for 5 to 10 minutes
Right.
and then go again because again it's about getting my maximal effort I can for that time frame,
Mhm.
not to be confused again with Tabata, which is a VO2 max effort. It's about heart rate and keeping it elevated and not recovering in between.
Right.
They might look the same as far as a hard effort is concerned, but the mechanism we're training is completely different. So
Yeah.
that's why these sprint programs are so important. We do need to work on this CPT system and this anaerobic side.
And it's fun to do something different.
And I love sprinting. Like we are genetically predisposed to a
Right.
certain side of that coin, anaerobic or aerobic. I am an anaerobic person. Like 1 minute and under efforts is where I go. Why? Because cardiovascularly, VO2 max wise, I stink. I don't have a high VO2 max.
Yeah.
So 1 minute and under doesn't even take in consideration that if you and I are going to sprint for 1 minute, we could hold our breath for a minute and still probably sprint about the same effort, right? So for me, I love the non-aerobic side of cycling um, because I stink at it, right? I'm not
Yeah.
gifted. My parents weren't
Well,
very VO2 max oriented, I guess,
parents weren't exercise oriented. I have,
Totally.
yeah, I know. But it's interesting because back to the power profile, when we look at that data and we can classify a rider. And you'll hear this if you've been watching the Tour de France, you're going to hear the commentators talk about, oh, this is the all-rounder. What does that mean? Well, that's a person who's pretty darn good at everything but doesn't excel at one.
Mhm.
Those are our domestiques. Those are the guys who, maybe they race the one-day races.
Classic racers. Yep.
Yeah, pursuiter, right? So pursuiter is going to have a little more high end here, but also a little more endurance here. And so they're like a V versus an inverted V, which is also a sprinter. And then a time trialist, which those of you who've done an FTP test, what is that? It's a time trial, right? I can go
Mhm.
long, moderately hard for a longer period of time. I'm the diesel engine. Yeah. Where do the climbers fall in this? They're just the skinny guys.
Time trialers. They're
Yeah.
usually time trialers. Like when you look at it like a Tour de France, like
The climbers
today was Mount Ventoux, right? Like
long.
it's a long climb where it's a sustained effort up
Yeah.
that climb. Um, a punchy climber would be like your one day racer, right? That
Yeah.
would be a little bit more VO2 max oriented, 5 minutes, 10-minute under effort kind of thing. But if it's over a 10-minute effort, you fall more into a time trialer.
Yeah. So how much change can we make in 6 weeks?
In sprinting,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
A
Uh,
lot. It's the fastest response because a lot of it is neurological,
yeah.
not fitness related. A lot of it is the
Oh, the
ability, like if you think
box.
about, yeah, if you think about like how strong my muscles really are, like how much power can my quads and my glutes and my hamstrings actually produce. What happens in sprinting, especially when we're talking about 5 seconds or 10 seconds sprinting, is it's about how much of my muscle do I use? How much muscle do I utilize?
Mhm.
So if I can use, let's say when I'm sprinting, I use 20% of my cycling muscles, 20% of my quads, 20% of my hamstring, all this stuff, right? And that produces 200 watts,
Right.
right? Well, if I can do 40%, well, now I just produced 400 watts instead of 200. But what that is that's how do you use it is in this is a neurological activation. It's how your brain turns it on. So
Mhm.
can your brain turn those fibers on all at once, as opposed to little here, little here, little here? If we're doing something for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, we're not using 20%, we're using 20% total, but we're using little pockets at a time, right? Like little
That's why
flashes.
sprinters practice sprints. It's
You're
not just
right.
the fitness aspect of it, it's also the technique aspect of it. But if you don't,
Which is zone 7 in the cognitive zones, which they actually took away, but zone 7 is neurological.
so
And
there's,
like I always say, is like I'm a sprinter because I grew up racing BMX bikes
yeah,
very young. So my first 5 pedal strokes are really strong.
yeah.
After that, I'm not as strong as the guy next to me. It's just that my first 5 pedal strokes got me a wheel or two ahead of them. Right. So that's it. It's
So elbows,
neurological.
sure yeah.
Sharp elbows,
Yeah,
fast response, sharp elbows.
yeah.
But
So
that's
we
why like
talked about
sprinting is neurological.
training sprint and how that can improve FTP. If I improve my FTP, so I pull the floor up, is that going to improve my sprint?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, well, not from a neurological point of view, but I would argue that if I increase my FTP, everything is going to increase. But
Yes, I would say your 1 minute and up probably would, but
yeah,
I think your 10-second sprint might not go up just because of.
yeah. So should we all train all of it? That's the big question, right? Or should we just say,
Yes.
oh, I'm never going to be a sprinter. I
No, because sprinting, this would be the same thing as lifting, right? The idea of lifting is to engage neurologically engage more muscle fiber.
Mhm.
So I used this example today talking to a client where we're talking about like Tade Bogachar, right? And we all heard Atia's podcast with him doing, 350 watts in zone two,
Oh,
right? Now I do 175 watts in zone two.
man, I
Now
don't
let's just say, I know, let's say
know.
Tade and I are,
No.
let's say Tade and I are exactly the same structure. We weigh the same. We physically are the same, except cardiovascular, he's obviously way superior than me. All
Yeah.
right. So let's say he and I are both rotting at 90 RPM. At 175 watts, we're just going to say I'm producing 20 pounds per pressure, right? Per pedal stroke. He's doing 350 watts. So he's doubling my pounds per pressure. So I'm doing 20, he's doing 40. Now, if we're the same exact size, same functional muscle and everything, I'm using 10% of my muscle, he's using 20% of his muscle,
Yeah.
right? So how do I get to that point? Well, I have to get to that
You
point
were
by
born to the wrong
utilizing,
parents.
yeah, for sure. He's my evil twin, right? Now, I have to get there by utilizing more muscle fibers. How
Yeah,
do I utilize more muscle fibers? By having a stimulus to require me to.
right.
I always tell my kids, if you can jump 3 feet, you're not going to jump four until you try to jump 3.5,
Mhm.
right? You have to, you can't just keep doing what you're doing. So sprint power and training your sprint is about getting your body to understand how to utilize more muscle fiber every
Right.
pedal stroke. So sprinting is super important for time trialists.
Yeah. And I think, there are other ways that we can complement that. Obviously, resistance training. And when you look at track
Yes.
racers or sprint specialists, those are the guys with the huge quads, right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
they lift heavy and they're doing,
Olympic lifting.
thing as well. Yeah. And that explosive power to be, especially track. Track is such a unique sport in that you have one gear and you have to go from a stop in many of the events to relatively high cadence. So that's very neurological, being able to train the pattern of movement and
Mhm.
yeah, and do it all and still be in control of the bike. It's just crazy. Uh,
Yeah, it's nuts.
it is. It is. So strengths and weaknesses. So your strength is the first 5 minutes.
Anaerobic.
Yeah.
My 1 minute and under is my strength. My limiter is like my
Hmm.
20-minute power is my limiter, which is aerobic, right? And the way I've always kind of talked about this is when we think about that threshold, lactate threshold, is when you use your muscle, when you're using anaerobic power, the byproduct is lactate, pyruvate. Your aerobic system uses that lactate to produce ATP.
Yeah.
So as an anaerobic person, I produce a lot of lactate, right? I'm using a lot of muscle power. My aerobic system is not strong enough to consume all that. So I always say this is like Lucy on the conveyor belt with the
Oh,
chocolates.
yeah.
Right? They're coming too fast and she's like shoving them in her mouth. So I'm producing this lactate, but my oxygen is not fast enough to consume it. So my legs start burning and I have to slow down. Then you have the opposite person who is super aerobically strong.
Right.
They can't produce enough lactate, right? They're over here like, I can eat these chocolates all day. Like, send me more chocolates, give me more energy, right? Because
Mhm.
then I can produce even more power. So you have this kind of, that's what when I see like strength and weaknesses, it's like, hey, my limiter, right? Not weakness, my limiter is my aerobic system.
Right.
I can't consume the lactate, the byproduct that I'm producing. Then you have the opposite. You have the person who's really strong aerobically. Their limiter is their anaerobic. They're like, hey, I could actually produce more energy if you created it. You're not strong enough to create it.
Right.
That person needs to start working on their anaerobic if they expect their FTP to improve.
Right.
So that's the real thing is strength and limiter is, are you aerobic or anaerobic? Which one are we working on and why? And that's
Right.
this whole idea of picking this thing up,
Right.
right?
And so
I
for
need to
true
do more.
fitness, it makes sense to do a little of everything.
It's a necessity.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's a necessity. You have to.
Yeah.
And your FTP might go down while you're doing it.
And that's okay. Because we know CTL is not fitness, even though it says it is, right? It's volume.
Right.
And my FTP is not fitness. I know it's very interesting. I'm really fit right now. I'm not bike fit. I get on the bike maybe once a week. Well, I'm riding my e-bike around town. Everybody's like on Strava because I had a big year. I did like 3,000 miles through the end of April, which was a pretty big year for
A
me.
lot.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And and now I'm riding my e-bike to go to the gym or my e-bike to go to the store and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. It's
Well, just think about all this other fitness that you're gaining
oh, it's amazing.
that at some point in time you're going to apply back to
Yeah. And I
cycling. And that's
even
the thing.
noticed it when I was on that bike for the first 4 months of the year. My short duration power went way up. And I think it's because I developed, well, better posture in the bike. I developed better core. I developed stronger muscles and more muscle mass, which is great. Yeah, ladies, don't be afraid of lifting. You're not going to get bulky. And if you do, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's also genetically predisposed. Like you
I have
either
muscle. Let's
look
see if I
at
can make a muscle. I have
that.
muscles here. I'd never seen them before, and I was doing um a warm up with a kettlebell that I was holding like this and doing a squat, and I was like, look at those muscles, and I have muscles here. I'm like,
We
I know.
all have the same muscles. They're all there.
I
And
just
we all
haven't
have
seen
them.
a lot of them in a long
It's a
time.
matter of seeing them,
Like
yeah.
even putting a barbell on my back was never comfortable. I always felt it like it was on my spine. Well, I have muscles there now. I'm like, I don't need to put a thing on.
You don't need a pad. Nobody needs a pad.
I
Pad's
know.
not good.
It's good. It's been fun. We can't really talk about power and different durations of power without mentioning power to weight ratio. And it's not as significant an issue on the Peloton because the Peloton doesn't have elevation change. But for those of you who, a lot of times we'll have smaller riders who are like, oh, why can't I, hit the same numbers that my husband does? And maybe he weighs 100 pounds more than you. Um, and maybe he's not even as fit as you, but he can push
Mhm.
higher power. So in outdoor riding, let's talk about how power to weight ratio matters.
Yeah, it's power to weight ratio was it's a comparison, right? It's how I can compare my FTP to your FTP. What's your power to weight? How does it apply outdoors? It only applies going uphill. That's
Yeah.
it. Against gravity. It does not apply on a flat road. And this is why you're a climber in the tour is not a good time trialist.
Mhm.
It's because they're good power to weight ratio heading uphill. But when
Right.
they're on the flat road and they're only 90 pounds and the guy that they're going against is 150 pounds
Right.
and they're both doing uphill, they're both doing 6 watts per kilogram, they're both going the same speed,
Mhm.
right? When they're on the flat road, that guy who's 150 pounds, his 6 watts per kilogram is almost double what the other guy's is. He's going a
Yeah.
lot faster. Yeah,
Although, then we can also look at, I'm thinking aerodynamics, right? So the coefficient of drag and the frontal
could
area,
be.
larger rider is going to be larger.
A
So,
little bit larger. Yeah, but that's why CDA, like that's when you would look at CDA to power, not necessarily not watts per kilogram. It'd be watts per CDA. Yeah.
yeah, all the numbers.
So many numbers.
I
Which is
know.
why, like for me, I don't like going uphill. I like flat rolly courses,
Yeah.
right? Because my FTP is not high
Yeah.
relative to my weight. So when we're going uphill, I'm at a huge disadvantage. But when we're on a flat road, the lighter guys,
Yeah.
I'm still as fast as them because my watts per kilogram
Right.
is not a negative
Yeah.
on a flat course.
Yeah. I kill it on the flats and the rolly stuff. Because a larger woman, I'm taller and I produce more force. And the climbs are difficult. Descents are good though for me because I'm tall. So I have a little more weight, but I'm narrow. I am super narrow. And so I get down in the drops and I can descend like nobody's business because
And you're just comfortable bike handler too, right? That's
well,
where skill set comes in. Like, yes, descending is skill set. Like,
yes.
let
And
it rip.
not born with it. You have to train it. Yeah. So,
You gotta
um,
be a little crazy too.
yeah, I'm less crazy than I was. And I can't imagine, I mean, having taken this much time off the bike, I'll have to build it back up, definitely, because, when you're hiking along, the earth isn't coming at you at the same high speed it is when you're flying down a hill at 50 miles an hour. So, yes, I have changed my tolerance for speed over the years too, I will say. Probably in the last 10 years, I've slowed down a little bit.
Tolerance of risk. That's more,
Yeah,
you're more risk averse as you
there's two
get
things.
older.
If it's a
And
law of averages, then maybe my number's up any minute, right? So it's just a matter of time. But yeah, we know the penalty's higher, and I'm not scared of descending, but I could be more conservative now. I'm not flying
yes.
corners the way I used to, because I'm like, there can be a UPS truck on the other side at some point. So, um, anything else we want to talk about today?
No, I think power, I think one of the biggest things is understanding, to your point of like doing something new, like
Yeah,
rowing. I think was such a great actually intro to this is we improve so quickly,
Yeah.
right? When we do something new, like it's
As
just
long
we
as we're
develop.
learning.
Yes, right. We're always going to, and I think with Power Zone, it hooks people really quickly because we see this number go up. We see this FTP go up because we're getting better at a skill. We're learning something new. The hard part comes into is when that power number stops going up
Yeah.
and it starts to drop, and sometimes it goes up a little bit, and you live in this kind of like little zone, then it becomes really hard for Power Zone users, right? Because they're just like, well, I'm not improving.
Hmm.
And that's what this conversation is really about, and understanding power profile
Yeah.
is you are improving, that number is just not going up.
Right.
And that's what I think is important. And I think the next step for Power Zone ultimately is they've educated everybody so well on FTP, on
Yeah.
the importance of FTP, and FTP is the important number because it does set your zones. That's
Right.
really why it's the most important number. Then now comes into is they have to start educating people on the other measurables as well,
Yeah.
and understanding how those are impacted. And I think that's what we've been trying to do here for the last year or 2 years in these conversations, is letting everybody understand like FTP is a super important number, if not the most important. Actually, the argument would be that VO2 max is probably the most important number.
Hard test.
Right? Like those are the two essential numbers, which would be your 5 minute. And the reason VO2 max is important is because it's when both systems, anaerobic and aerobic, are like full throttle. Like
Mhm.
that's why your VO2 max is so important. Um, yeah, I think that's power profile is super important. And
Yeah.
I test my clients throughout the year. Like I have a couple clients that just finished up either a race or like they're done with the last block, and we're kind of like, okay, well, what's next? Where do we go? We have to do a week of testing
Yeah.
because the numbers will tell me what we
Good
have
going.
to do, like
Yeah.
where to go next. Do we need to raise your 5 minute number, or do we need to raise your FTP? Like, and a good way to kind of explain this, like the importance of like VO2 max and FTP is, I always say, is like, think of it like a house, right? Your VO2 max is the roof of the house. Your FTP is the ceiling of the room. If I don't have any attic space, right, my
Yeah.
FTP is up too close to my, so let's say your 5 minute power is 300 watts
Mhm.
and your FTP is 280 watts.
Right.
Well, there's only 20 watts in between there. My 20-minute number cannot be equal to my 5 minute number,
Right.
right? That's just logical. So there's no point in me working on my FTP. It can't go anywhere. There's no attic space.
Yeah.
So it kind of forces you as a coach to be like, well, hey, we have to spend the next 8 weeks working on your VO2, your power at VO2 max. We have to raise this roof up. We got to go from 300 to 320. And then we have this 40 watts to play with. Now we can go back and affect your FTP from 280 to 300, right? And grow that. So that's the importance of the power profile. Like a lot of people might be maxed out at their FTP simply because their VO2 max power is maxed
Right.
out. So the only way you're going to improve that is by doing sprint workouts and VO2 max workouts and doing that kind of stuff that you might hate doing,
Yeah.
but
So
you
let me
have to
ask
do
you one
it.
more question when you're programming your clients. Are you, and it's a little different when we're event based and we're outside, but are you sprinkling in high intensity of different types throughout the year or through certain periods
Yes.
of training? Yeah, because what we're doing is a block that's basically, all high intensity, a little bit of aerobic in there, a little bit of endurance,
Hmm.
I should say. Yeah. So, and I think especially for older clients, it's really important, once a week or once every other week to do
And
something.
once every 14 days, something like
Yeah,
that. Like
with some high
use it or
intensity.
lose it, right? It's that mentality of use it or lose it. Like
Yeah.
my wife asked me the other day, she's like, when's the last time you sprinted, like running?
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, I don't know. Like I really have no idea. Like I can't sprint right now. I would hurt myself.
Right.
I mean, physically, can I sprint? Sure, but I'm going to hurt myself. So the idea is like, yes, you do build up this, like after we do this sprint challenge, like you should mix in some sprinting every once in a while. Like my clients are told when they're out for their zone 2 ride on the weekends, sprint for the town line.
Right.
Like get a sprint hard effort in there, or like, yeah, I know it's a zone 2 ride, but there's this 2 minute segment on Strava or this climb, go for it. Like just hammer it for 2 minutes. It's not going to change the workout structure. It's like, but you want that neurological response and like, oh, hey, we still have to do this. So let's make sure we keep this pathway open. Let's not close the door on this. Right. So that's super important to make sure you kind of always mix it in there.
Yeah. Well, and that's when we look at the Power Zone program, that's where, building a program that has the Power Zone endurance rides and the max and
Mhm.
zone classes, it all makes sense. So, yeah, cool. I'm excited.
Awesome.
I know. We've seen some really great progress already with folks. So it's been a good year. I'm
I
excited.
thought last year the sprint program was very well received. Like I
Yeah.
thought people loved it. Like, because it's not something that we do all the time. And it's super fun. And
Although
it's a great
I
way.
got a little shade for putting the power profile test on the first day. They're like, who hired this woman? But what
Do
better
it
way?
again at the end. It looks better. But like it's also like I always said, like a lot of times, depending on what your power numbers are, somebody has never seen 300 watts on their
Right,
screen before. And
right.
then when all of a sudden you start seeing 300 watts on a regular basis, it goes in your head of like, wow,
I
that's
can do that.
attainable.
Yeah,
That's attainable. I can get there. And then I can do 350 and then 400 and then stuff like that. It's a really big motivator, personally, as well as like neurologically, like in your head, subconsciously, you start to see that number, it becomes normalized.
it does. It does. So awesome.
Awesome. I could talk forever,
I know.
obviously.
But that's why I brought you on.
So
'Cause I
that's
feel like
why
I have to talk forever all the time. So I'm
Lori's like, I need a break. Let's call
Brian, the
Brian.
science guy, will come on and
Let's
talk.
call Brian and just throw a
I-
carrot out there and watch him just go
Exactly.
off
You
the
didn't even know what
rails.
we were talking about today. And yeah,
No, I didn't.
I really appreciate your time today. And thank you.
I love it. I've always loved to be here.
See ya on the leaderboard.
Bye-bye.